All right, we're live. All right, we're live, and it is Real Talk on Real Estate. Welcome, everybody, YouTube. Welcome, everybody, on Instagram. All right, so today, one of the biggest things, ladies and gentlemen, is I've been telling people to focus on this right here. I need you guys to focus on this right here, this thing, this right here, this one thing. And it's just getting started. One of the big problems that most people have is they have a limited belief on whether they can or cannot get started in buying real estate. And I'll tell you, one of the big movements that we've been working on right now is how to build the person that built wealth in real estate or in anything else. And so one of the big things, guys, ladies and gentlemen, is getting started. And so you guys are going to see me take a light pivot backwards just for a short time. And one of the biggest reasons why is I need more people winning. And if you guys can just embrace for a second migrating away from the massive multifamily, migrating away from even the buying land, building houses, and just focusing on this right here, this one thing. And it's just getting started. And here's why. Because in 1998, when I first got started, I just wanted an asset. I just wanted something to protect my money. And I wanted something that over the course of time, even if it didn't make me money, I just had the ability to have an asset that held its value, that when I sold it, I still had my money. I just wanted to protect my money. And for a lot of people today, when they go to work, they just don't have a way to protect their money. It burns. It burns a hole in their pocket. It burns with mortgage payments and car payments and travel, kids, food, gas, everything. It just burns, right? Okay, so I want you guys to focus on this. But I want you guys to really pay attention here because most people tend to complicate absolutely everything. So I'm going to simplify this for you guys in 5 tips on how to buy your very first rental home. People are going, damn, Jerome, you're going to go that elementary? Yes, I'm going to. So even if you have experience, watch, just follow me here for a second because I want to explain to you guys exactly how I actually got into real estate and how simple it really is. And yes, there's a migration in time, but if we can't even get you started because the failure rate is so high in absolutely everything in life, from people becoming college graduates, from people becoming successful and just being small business owners, from people migrating to doing their first deal in real estate, whatever it might be, the failure rate is high, and it's because people quit. Okay, so this is one thing that my mentor taught me years ago. He said, Bill used to tell me, he goes, Jerome, get people an $800 check. He goes, because if you get them an $800 check, they'll never quit because they've had success. And the biggest thing is just giving people little bits of success. And so I want to talk to you guys today about the 5 tips of just getting started in buying a rental home. Because if you do these, you have a little bit of success, whether it's just a $300 a month success over what you're paying in your interest rates and your mortgage, it's still a win because you have an asset. So you don't sit back and go, damn, I'm only making $300. What you sit back and say, hey, I'm making $300, but I own this. Like this is mine. I own this and I don't have to live in it, but I own it. And it's going to appreciate. It's going to go up in value. I can write it off with my taxes and I still make money doing it. And it's a win. And what's going to happen is you're going to learn a little bit more about the negotiating aspects of buying a rental property. You're going to learn about the mortgage, the lending, what's required of you. You're going to also learn about tenants, dealing with them, and in some of the problems, the good, the bad, the ugly, the attributes. All of that stuff is going to be a part of that right here. Just one. And you'll utilize every single purchase that you do as a learning and educational platform for what you do next. And what you do next, and what you do next. But the biggest thing is you have to start with this, ladies and gentlemen. You got to start with this, just one thing. And that's just get started. And sometimes it's just as simple as sometimes just going back to buying one rental home. Maybe it's not buying a piece of land and building a house at first, because there's way more profitability buying land and building houses. But if you get started doing this and your confidence level goes from here to here, then you go, okay, let's do it again. You go from here to here. Then you can go up. And that's how you resume up, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so let's talk about this. 5 tips, okay? Don't go too far. Don't go too far from where you live. Everybody's looking for the best and baddest area around, right? Well, where can I buy the best rental home? There are good rental homes absolutely in every single market whatsoever. Now, I would tell you there's bad rental homes in demographical areas for sure. I mean, I remember going with Ty and his brother Chris and Ben into Durham, North Carolina. And I remember going into some of the most forbidden properties that I've ever been in my entire life, drug ridden, just, I mean, depressing, right? Now, but yet down the street from those was some really solid properties. And we just went into one area right down the road from where Ty and his family and these guys grew up. And I remember when Ty Lopez and I went down there, we got going, okay, let's just see, let's piecemeal this together and just take it piece by piece. Now, when I went in and I bought my first rental home, I remember that I was still living in a trailer, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't even have a house yet. I was just wanting to protect my money. I remember I had a freezer that I was stuffing money in. If you guys drove into this trailer park, you guys would sit back and scratch your head and go, holy shit, man, there's probably, I mean, homeless, half homeless, like so many people were living in tents, right? And I just happened I had to own it when I went to college. And when I left away on my hiatus of multi-level marketing, I kept it. And I rented it and it gave me a little bit of cash flow, and it was a mobile home, guys. It was a trailer, right? And so one of the things is I didn't try to move into a big house right away. I went and bought this simple house. And I remember my wife and I, she was my girlfriend at the time. We drove around, and one weekend I said, okay, I had like $70,000 in my freezer, like literally cash from pouring concrete. And my credit was trashed. But I didn't spend the $70,000 buying the house. I went in and I said, okay, I'm only going to buy some because I don't want to exhaust my capital. So he said, oh, well, you had $70,000. Yeah, but I had $70,000 and I had like 120 in debt at that time. And it was like, okay, what do I pay back? How do I get out of this debt that I'm in? And how do I buy a rental home all at the same time? How do I not exhaust all of my capital? And so I can still have working capital to build my business and do what I need to do? And so one of the things that I did is I didn't go very far. All I did is one Sunday, literally right after church, we said, let's go drive around. It was like Sunday. We didn't have kids. We were young. I was in my mid-20s. And I remember going and saying, hey, what are we going to do after church today? Okay, let's go drive around and let's look for property. And we didn't go like miles away. We literally went like across the street from the church, which was literally right behind the trailer park that I lived in. And we just drove up and down every single street, residential street, right around where I actually lived. And there was a train track there, and there was like, just this lower median area, and it wasn't the most desirable area, but there was like this little pocket called Commercial Street, and it was kind of desirable. It was kind of cool. The people there had lived there for a long time. The whole houses for sure were super old. And here's what we did, guys. We didn't go very far. When I bought my first retail center, I did the exact same thing. I just literally went out the street and I drove down the road on 66. I lived really close to there. And I just drove down the road and I looked for empty buildings. And we just migrated in those areas. And I think sometimes people tend to come in and complicate things. And so what I'm telling you guys is don't complicate things. Keep things simple. Remember the book, Keep It Simple, Stupid? Just keep it simple, guys. And so we literally just drove around. Now, there's a couple things that you need to do. You need to go old school because people tend to stay too much on this piece of shit right here. Okay. And it's a smartphone, but it's the biggest piece. It's the brain killer, guys. Brain killer. Brain killer. Okay. You got to go old school. Okay. Put this shit down. Okay. Use this to make calls. Okay. Old school style. Because you're going to learn something about negotiations and what you're going to learn when you talk to people. You can't get out of this what you get when you get somebody on the phone, ladies and gentlemen. And I always tell people are afraid. Like I get staff now coming in, like administrative assistants and secretaries that come in, and they go, oh, I can't get a hold of the customer. And I go, well, you can't. I said, you got their email? And they go, well, yeah. I emailed them. And I go, and I text them. I said, did you call them? And they're like, no. And I said, there's a demographical variance of people out there, ladies and gentlemen. Some people that are younger and a little bit more brain dead only use this for text messaging and is their only means to be able to go out and communicate with people because they don't know how to use their lingua, their tongue, their mouth, okay? And so I'm telling you guys, you got to use your damn mouth and you got to talk to people. When you ask people something, they'll respond with an answer. You know how to get something out of somebody? You ask them a question. My mentor taught me that years ago. He said, Jerome, all you got to do is ask, and you'll be surprised what people tell you when you ask for it. But you have to ask. And so you have to go old school. And what we did is we just drove around the neighborhood and we did three things. Okay, I'm going to give you these three things. We found houses that were for sale, that had for sale signs on them. Every single one of them, we called every single one. And we drove up probably, I don't know, man, 30 streets that are within like a 1 mile area of where we were looking. Some of them were really bad areas. I was like, okay, I don't want to buy in here. But then there was some that were really nice areas that were like not like demographically wealthy areas. They were just like nicer. You could tell that people cared about their front lawns, and they didn't have broken down cars in their driveway, and they didn't have riffraff running through their house. It was an older area, older home. But I remember calling every single house for sale in spite of that, saying, hey, what are you asking for your house? What's the square footage? In how, what does it need? What problems do you have with it? And I would just ask them these simple questions, right? And then I would go, can we look at it? And then we would go in and we would look at it. And I wanted to know the square footage. I wanted to know what the price was. And I was comparing. I didn't even have a realtor yet. I didn't know how to do comps. I was doing my own comps with this right here, a phone, guys. And I remember going in and then I started calling rental homes. And what I was doing was I wasn't going to live in the house. Okay. I wanted to rent it. I wanted an asset. I wanted something I could rent, make some money, protect my assets. Okay. Well, just one, guys. And so it took all of one full day to get a list of numbers. Then I worked those in the median of what I already do, already running concrete and doing what I was doing back in 1998, just making phone calls, facilitating negotiations with people, learning about the properties. And in 1 week, I found a property I was going to buy. And it was this little house off a commercial street. And I ended up calling, and I asked the realtor, about the house. And there was a few issues. The floors were warped because the house had flood irrigation. So the floor joists had gotten wet at certain points in time when they had over flooded the property, and it wet the wood. So the floors had like some waves in it. I rented it like that. I went in, we refinished all the floors, and it was simple. Okay. So we went old school. We drove and we called, and I looked for two things, guys, without any realtors. I looked for price per home, price per square foot, and I looked to see what the sales price was. And I called for rental rates from rental homes in the area as well. Now, back in those days, the internet was still brand new because it was invented it was open to the general public in 1996. This was 1998. So we didn't have the internet or Google on our phones at that time. So I remember looking in the newspaper and the Sunday paper for rental homes in the northwest side of town where I was looking. And I called all of them. I wanted to see what these houses were renting for. And then I drove by them the next weekend on that Saturday. And that's how I got my comps. And I said, okay, realistically, I can get X amount for my house. Okay. So you need to, number three, the third tip, pencil your payment versus your rental potential. Okay. So you get the house. And at that time, I think I paid about $125,000 for this house. Remember, it's 1998. Okay. So it was a while back. And looking for my calculator. And so I sat back, and here's how simple it is, guys. Let me just pull up my calculator on my phone. Here's how simple it is. You go in and you take, let's say that now the same house I probably bought back for $125,000, probably $250,000 now. So $250,000. Okay. Small rental house. The house, I think it was like 2,000 square feet, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 1,800. Okay. But I take the house, $250,000, right? And at that time, interest rates were someplace in the neighborhood of about 7 or 8%. Okay. So let's call it 7%. So times, and today they're at like mortgage rates are just under 6%. So let's call it like 5.5%. So times 0.055. Okay. That's 5.5%. That's $13,750 a year. So you divide that by 12. And when you divide that by 12, ladies and gentlemen, that's $1,145 a month. That's your mortgage payment. Now, if it's amortized, you're not paying much. And so you can use an amortization calculator. I use one that's provided by Google. And it's just an amortization schedule that Google, you can get them anywhere. You can even just Google amortization calculator. And you can just put one.
According to the Motley Fool, starting in month 1, take the total amount of the loan and multiply it by the interest rate on the loan. Then for a loan with monthly repayments, divide the result by 12 to get your monthly interest.
Okay, so we didn't have Google explaining it like that. So my dad was an accountant. I called my dad and said, hey, Dad, can you do me a huge favor? Can you just explain to me how I would figure out how to amortize this over 30 years on a note, right? So he put me this little formula together, and that's how I figured out my full payment. Okay. Now you could go in and you can use a loan calculator, and most of the mortgage ones, they want your information, but you put it in here and you calculate. So you can put in here desired loan amount, 225,000, right? They want you to get the app. So you go in 225,000. Now, I landed up doing an owner finance on it because I called a bunch of properties, and I remember there's this one guy that was really savvy. He was kind of a do it yourself, do everything yourself type guy. And he was running a car dealership out of there. He was doing a mechanic shop out of there. It was a rental home. This guy was doing everything. And I remember going and seeing this guy, and I was like, damn, that seems like a lot of work. And he looked trashed. And I mean, okay, I don't want to buy this house. It's a piece of crap. And I never want to run stuff like this guy because looks crazy. And I remember just learning from every house I looked at and how everybody was selling. I landed up meeting with investors themselves that were trying to sell homes. I landed up meeting with end users that were selling their home. I landed up meeting with all kinds of people. And I learned a lot. And by doing this, because I was in the field, right? Look, doing this. And so when I did it, I just simple calculations, right? I think I gave him a few $1,000s down. I can't remember exactly how much anymore, but it was 125,000. So I probably gave him $5,000 to $10,000 down, maybe. And then I went in and I evaluated the cost for renovations. That's number 4. Okay. So I want to see how much is my mortgage payment and how much is my rent. Okay. Now I remember paying someplace in the neighborhood of about $1,000 a month for the mortgage. And I remember getting about, at that time, for a 3-bedroom house, we were getting someplace in the neighborhood about $1,500 to $1,600 a month for a full house with a yard. It had a big yard. And so we landed up renting it, and I was making about $300 or $400 a month. Nothing to brag about, but I had to go and evaluate what it was going to take to renovate the house. So the house needed paint. We had a bunch of bamboo to clear out of the yard. That was how we cleaned up the landscaping. We had a Bobcat from our concrete company. So I literally went in there and used my own Bobcat to clear out all the trash. And I had my guys go and help me clean up the property. Then we went in there and we just gutted the house, all the blinds off of it, the nails out of the wall. And I hired a drywall guy because we were doing drywall and metal stud framing. And we went in, they patched all the walls, the cracks, because it did have some settling on the house and there was some floor joist issues. We went in there and we braced them. We had to fix some floor heaters and the air conditioners and some little stuff. But we spent probably about maybe $7,000 fixing the house, and we painted it. Now, the painting, we actually did a lot of it ourselves. But outside of that, we ended up having somebody go in there and refinish the floors. I think that was the most expensive thing that we did that cost us like $2,000. And they were old wood floors. When they were done, they looked absolutely gorgeous. And so we rented this house and we made a profit. And I felt good about it because I felt like my money was parked into something that was going to grow in spite of me having to do much with it other than just rent the damn house. Okay. Now, 5th, what you want to do is quality counts, guys. Quality always counts. Now, one of the biggest things is you're going to get the level of tenant based on the quality of what you are renting and how you actually finish the property. So one of the big things that I learned from my mom years ago, because my mom grew up extremely poor. My mom's dad passed away when my mom was like 5 years old. She's the 3rd youngest of 11 kids, and they grew up in a small mountain town. And I'll tell you that I remember one day I can't remember where we were at. And I said, my mom goes, she goes, holy cow, it's filthy here. She goes, I can't stand filthiness. And I said, well, Mom, it's because they're poor. And she goes, no, that's bullshit. She told me that. I remember her getting angry. I was like 18 years old. She said, that's bullshit. She goes, I was poor, but my mom was never dirty. She goes, never. We had dirt floors in our house, and they would, when they were growing up, they had dirt floors and they would sweep them, but it was like hard, because they used them and walked on them. So he turned like these hard dirt floors like a glaze. And I learned that from my mom that day. She goes, there's a difference between being poor and being filthy. She goes, there's no excuse for filthy, because even when you're poor, you can be clean. Because we were poor and we were always, always, always clean. And so the level of person that you're going to have in your house, poor or not poor, is going to reflect based on how you have and care for that house. Okay. So one of the things I always remember was I have to pour in a level of quality to attract a better tenant. So I always went in and I never left things subpar. I will always go in. We did things to the finish line, right? Put in appliances that worked, everything that worked. We cleaned up the yard, made it look good, got rid of all the weeds, graded it, leveled it, made sure it didn't flood. We went in, we painted the house, we redid the floors, we made sure everything was functional, the toilets, everything. And it was clean, ladies and gentlemen. And then once we did that, Then we rented the house. And hence, we always had pretty good tenants, okay? And it wasn't the tenants that were hard a lot of times. We have had hard tenants over the years. We had a lot of them, you know, and when I don't take care of that stuff and I've lost control of it over the years, the tenants miraculously got worse, right? So now I just hire a property management company. I let them deal with that garbage, and I just go and manage the property management company. And if I see them doing less than quality work, then I address it and attack it accordingly, right? But hence, when you're doing a onesie, twosie, you yourself have to vet the quality. So you yourself are going to get the quality that you personally represent. So if you represent garbage, you're going to probably rent a garbage. But if you represent quality, you're going to get quality or better quality. Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, those are the 5 things that you need to do, the 5 tips that you need to do to buy this, ladies and gentlemen, to buy this one house. But just get started. Just get started. Once your confidence goes up and you have a win in your life, it's an investment win, all of a sudden, doors open up. The parameters of your brain open up. The limited beliefs start shutting down one by one, by one, by one. Every success leaves clues. Every single win opens the mind and the mental state. And the more you win, whether it's even a small win, the more success you'll continue to have over the course of time. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys like this content, want more content just like this, pound that thumbs up button and click and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and I'll bring you more content like this every single week. Thank you for joining us on Real Talk on Real Estate. We'll see you guys next week. God bless you and have a great night. You guys on Instagram, give us some love, some likes and comments. If you're going to watch this repeat, put hashtag repeat. Same thing with you guys on YouTube. God bless you guys. Good night, and go out and compound your success.